Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UCS Frontier, watching the stars drift past through the main viewport. They had been mapping this sector for 3 months now, checking asteroids and empty planets for useful metals. It was boring. Work, but someone had to do it. The colonies back home needed resources, and space was full of them if you knew where to look. "Captain, I'm getting something weird on long range," said Lieutenant Pete Collins from the sensor station. His voice had that tone that meant trouble was coming. Jake walked over to look at the displays. "What kind of weird?" "Big energy readings, sir. Really big. And they're moving fast toward us." Pete's fingers danced over his controls, trying to get clearer readings. "Whatever it is, it's huge. Multiple contacts, all traveling together." "Doctor." Lisa Bennett looked up from her research station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though they hadn't found much of that yet. "How big are we talking?" "At least 50 ships, maybe more. They're dropping out of hyperspace right in front of us." Pete's voice got tighter. "Sir, they're not following normal space lanes. Whatever they are, they're running from something." Jake felt his stomach drop. First contact was supposed to happen with careful planning, lots of preparation, and backup. From the fleet. Not out here in the middle of nowhere with just one exploration ship. Red alert. All hands to stations. Send a message to Earth immediately. The bridge filled with the soft red glow of emergency lighting. Around the ship, Jake could hear feet running as his crew got ready for whatever was coming. They were explorers. Not fighters, but they trained for everything. "Contact dropping out of hyperspace now," Pete announced. The main screen flickered and showed space in front of them. Suddenly, it was full of ships. Jake had never seen anything like them. They were organic-looking, like giant sea creatures made of metal and crystal. Some were small, maybe the size of a fighter. Others were massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. And they were all damaged. Scorch marks covered their hulls. Pieces were missing from several ships. Some were trailing atmosphere and debris. Whatever they were running from had hurt them badly. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies," said Communications Officer Sue Davis. Her hands moved quickly over her board. It's in English, sir." "Broken English, but I can understand it." Jake felt his mouth go dry. Aliens who spoke. English meant they had been watching humanity for a long time. "Put it through." Static filled the bridge, and a voice unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was musical but sad, like wind blowing through broken glass. "Human vessel. We see you. We must speak. Please do not run. We need help." Dr. Bennett moved to her analysis station. "The language patterns are definitely learned. Not natural. They've been studying our broadcasts for years, maybe decades." "Human ship, please respond," the alien voice continued. "We are Kethmori Coalition, 17 species. We know you from your signals. You are Jake Morrison, captain of exploration ship. We have watched your people. You think differently then. U.S. We need different thinking now." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. This was the moment that would change everything. First contact with not just one alien species, but 17 of them at once. "This is Captain Morrison of the United Colonial Ship Frontier," he said slowly. "We hear you. State your intentions." "We run from death," the voice replied immediately. "Death that eats everything. Death that cannot be stopped. We have tried everything our people know. Nothing works, but humans ... Humans think in ways we do not understand. Ways that might save us all." Dr. Bennett was already working on translation programs, trying to clean up the communication. "Captain, their ship designs suggest very advanced technology. If they're running from something, it Must be incredibly dangerous. The alien voice continued, getting clearer as Dr. Bennett's programs kicked in. My name is Veltar. I speak for the Coalition. We have lost 43 star systems to the Devourers. They consume all life, turn it into more of themselves. Soon, they will reach our core worlds. Billions will die. Commander Ryan Clark, Jake's second-in-command, stepped forward. Sir, this could be a trap. We don't know anything about these aliens. But Jake was watching the damaged ships on the screen. These weren't the vessels of conquerors. These were refugees, running from something so terrible they were willing to beg strangers for help. Veltar, what exactly are these Devourers? Jake asked. The response took several minutes. When it came, Jake could hear the fear in the alien's musical voice. They are a swarm. Millions of ships, all connected by one mind. They land on worlds and consume everything living. Plants, animals, people. They use the matter to build more ships, more soldiers. When they finish with a world, nothing remains but empty rock. Dr. Bennett's screen filled with incoming data. Captain, they're transmitting historical records. Visual documentation of the attacks. Jake nodded to her, and the main screen changed. What he saw made his blood run cold. Worlds that looked like Earth, covered in cities and green life. Then, the same worlds afterward, gray and lifeless. Empty shells floating in space. They started at the Galactic Rim 18 months ago, Veltar explained. We thought we could stop them. The Zephani had quantum weapons. The Mordak built dimensional barriers. The Keltari tried biological warfare. Nothing worked. The Devourers adapted to everything, consumed everything. The images kept coming. Jake saw alien cities that made human architecture look primitive. He saw technologies that seemed like magic. All of it reduced to nothing by the swarm. We studied your species from your radio signals, Veltar continued. Humans fight differently than we do. You use tactics we would never consider. You are creative in ways that frighten us, but perhaps the creativity can save us. Jake felt the weight of the moment. 17 alien civilizations, more advanced than humanity, were asking for help. They had exhausted their own resources and were turning to the newcomers as a last hope. How long do we have? Jake asked. 6 months until they reach our core. Worlds. 8 months until they begin expanding toward your territory. Captain Morrison, we do not ask lightly. But if the Devourers are not stopped, they will eventually consume everything in this galaxy, including your Earth. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Jake looked at his crew. Dr. Bennett was studying the alien data with fascination and horror. Commander Clark was calculating tactical possibilities. Sue Davis was trying to establish better communication protocols. We need to send all this information to Earth immediately, Jake decided. Veltar, we cannot make promises for our entire species, but we will share your situation with our leaders. That is all we can ask, Veltar replied. We will wait here, in your outer system. We hope your leaders will see what we see. That sometimes the newest voice in the room has the answer everyone else missed. Jake began composing the most important message in human history. First contact had come not with celebration, but with a desperate plea for survival. And somehow, humanity might be the last hope for an entire galaxy. The emergency meeting room at Colonial Defense Headquarters buzzed with tension. Admiral Peter Hayes sat at the head of the long table, studying the holographic displays that showed the alien fleet data. Around him, the most important people in human space argued about what to do next. This has to be some kind of trick, said Senator Paul Grant, shaking his head. 17 alien species just happened to show up asking for our help? We've been in space for less than a century. Why? Would they need us? General Martha Stone leaned forward, her steel-gray hair catching the light from the displays. Because we're unpredictable, Senator. Look at their battle records. They tried every conventional weapon, every defensive strategy. All logical, all planned out perfectly, and all failures. Dr. Kevin Brooks, the lead weapons engineer, was studying the data about the Devourers with intense focus. The aliens are right about one thing. These Devourers are unlike anything we've ever seen. They adapt to each attack, learn from every defense. It's like fighting an enemy that gets smarter every time you hit it. Admiral Hayes rubbed his tired eyes. 3 days of emergency sessions had given him little sleep. What do our best tactical minds say? Colonel Dan Miller spoke up from the far end of the table. Every war game simulation we run ends the same way. Conventional weapons fail against an adaptive enemy this large. We need something they've never seen before, something they can't adapt to quickly enough. Dr. Brooks suddenly straightened in his chair. There might be something. Project Cascade. We've been working on it in secret for 2 years. The room went quiet. Project Cascade was so classified that only 5 people in the room had even heard the name before. Explain it in simple terms, Doctor. Admiral Hayes said. Dr. Brooks activated his personal display, showing complex equations and energy patterns. Dark matter manipulation. We've learned how to disrupt the quantum fields that hold molecules together. In theory, we could destabilize matter on a massive scale. General Stone looked interested. How massive? Ship-sized? Maybe fleet-sized? If we build it big enough. The energy release cascades through quantum connections, breaking down molecular bonds in a chain reaction. Senator Grant looked worried. What kind of side effects are we talking about? Dr. Brooks hesitated. We don't know. The computer models show the effect should be contained, but we've never tested it outside of laboratory conditions. The scale we're talking about would be thousands of times larger than anything we've tried. How long to build a working version? Admiral Hayes asked. If we commit every resource we have, maybe 6 weeks for a prototype, 3 months for a full weapons platform. The room erupted in discussion. Some voices argued for caution, others for immediate action. Admiral Hayes listened to it all, then raised his hand for silence. Captain Morrison is bringing their representative to Earth. We'll have a chance to question them directly, get more information about these Devourers. But we need to start preparing now. 2 weeks later, Captain Morrison's ship arrived at Earth, with Veltar aboard. The alien was unlike anything humans had imagined. It looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a crystal formation, floating in a tank of shimmering liquid. When it spoke, the translation device made its voice sound almost human. Your world is beautiful, Veltar said, as it looked at Earth through the station windows. So much life, so much diversity. The Devourers would consume it all in days. Dr. Lisa Bennett, who had come back with Morrison, was fascinated by the alien biology. Veltar, can you tell us more about how the Devourers work? Their weaknesses? Veltar's crystalline body pulsed with sad colors. They are all connected. One mind controlling millions of bodies. They communicate through quantum entanglement across vast distances. This is their strength, but perhaps also a weakness you could exploit. Dr. Brooks was taking notes frantically. Quantum entanglement. If we could disrupt that connection. Many have tried, Veltar said. The connection is too strong, too. Well protected, but Dr. Brooks was already thinking. What if we didn't attack the connection directly? What if we attacked the quantum field itself? Over the next month, human shipyards worked around the clock. The Cascade weapon required enormous amounts of energy, so it had to be built into the largest ships humanity could construct. The new Annihilator-class cruisers were twice the size of anything in the colonial fleet. Captain, Amy Foster was chosen to command the first ship, the UCS Devastator. She was humanity's best pilot and had volunteered for the most dangerous missions since joining the fleet. The weapon is completely untested at this scale. Dr. Brooks warned her during the final briefing. We're not sure exactly what will happen when you fire it. Amy looked at the massive ship through the briefing room window. Doctor, if we don't try something, those things will eventually reach Earth. I'd rather take an unknown risk than face certain death. The first test took place in an empty star system, far from any populated worlds. Amy's crew was nervous as they approached the target area, where they had placed several derelict ships to test the weapon's effects. Cascade weapon charged and ready, reported Lieutenant Commander Bill Jensen from the weapons station. Amy took a deep breath. Fire. The weapon released no visible beam, no explosion, no flash of light. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the target ships began to shimmer and fade. In seconds, they were gone completely, reduced to basic particles that scattered into space. My God, whispered Dr. Rachel Moore, the quantum physicist monitoring the test. The energy cascade is still spreading. It's following quantum connections. Through space, they watched in amazement as the effect continued for several minutes, reaching far beyond the intended target zone. When it finally stopped, an area of space the size of Earth's solar system was completely empty of all matter except the most basic particles. How is that possible? Amy asked. Dr. Moore was staring at her readings in shock. The cascade effect is self-sustaining. Once it starts, it feeds on quantum connections until there are none left in the area. This isn't just a weapon. It's like a fire that burns reality itself. News of the successful test reached Earth within hours. Admiral Hayes called another emergency meeting, but this time the mood was different. Hope mixed with fear as they realized what they had created. We can stop the Devourers, General Stone said. But are we sure we can control this weapon? Dr. Brooks looked at the test data with growing concern. The effects were much larger than predicted. If we use this against the Devourers, there might be collateral damage. Veltar, who had been monitoring human communications, sent a message to the meeting. Our worlds are already doomed. If your weapon can stop the Devourers, use it. We accept any risk. Senator Grant was still worried. What if it spreads beyond the target area? What if we can't shut it off? Admiral Hayes looked around the room, at the faces of humanity's leaders. Outside, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that its fate was being decided in this room. We build 12 Annihilator ships, he decided. We train crews for all of them. And we pray that when the time comes, we're making the right choice. Dr. Brooks began immediate preparations for mass production. Deep down, he wondered if they were about to save the galaxy or destroy it. But with the Devourers coming, they had no choice but to find out. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valtania system, and Captain Amy Foster felt her stomach drop at what she saw. The Devourer swarm was even worse than the recordings had shown. Millions of organic ships filled the space around the dying alien homeworld, their surfaces pulsing with sickly light as they coordinated their attack. Dear God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Bill Jensen from beside her. There's so many of them. Amy gripped the arms of her command chair as she watched the massive alien vessels strip away chunks of the planet's surface. Each piece was quickly processed by smaller ships, turned into raw material for building more Devourers. The planet that had once been home to billions was being eaten alive. Captain Morrison, this is Foster, she said into her communicator. I count at least 3 million individual contacts. Maybe more. Jake Morrison's voice crackled back from the UCS frontier. Understood, Amy. Veltar says this is actually a small group. The main swarm is still several systems away. Commander, Tony Phillips, the tactical coordinator, spoke from the command ship. All units, remember the plan. Coalition forces will herd the Devourers into tight formations. Human forces will provide precision strikes. When the target is concentrated enough, the Annihilator ships will fire. Amy looked at her tactical display, where 12 human ships showed as blue dots among hundreds of alien vessels. The Coalition had brought everything they could spare, but their ships were already damaged from months of fighting. Many wouldn't survive the battle. "This is Veltar," came the alien's translated voice over the communications channel. "My people are ready to die for this chance. Please do not let our sacrifice be meaningless." The battle began with the Coalition ships charging directly into the swarm. Amy watched in amazement as the alien vessels used tactics she had never seen before. They moved like schools of fish, flowing around the Devourer formations and striking at weak points with perfect coordination, but the Devourers adapted quickly. Within minutes, they were matching the Coalition movements, predicting their attacks. The organic ships moved with frightening intelligence, as if they shared a single mind. "Human fighters, move in," Captain Morrison ordered. "Hit their coordination nodes." Amy watched her fighter pilots dart between the massive alien vessels, their weapons striking at the glowing communication organs that connected the Devourers to their hive mind. Each hit caused confusion in the local swarm, but the effect lasted. Only seconds before backup systems took over. Dr. Rachel Moore, monitoring the battle from her position on the UCS Devastator, reported what she was seeing. The quantum entanglement network is incredibly complex. Every ship is connected to every other ship. Destroying individuals has almost no effect on the whole. The Coalition forces were taking heavy losses. Amy watched as ship after ship was overwhelmed by the Devourers, their crews fighting to the last moment. The alien vessels were brave, but they were no match for the endless swarm. "Captain Foster," Commander Phillips called, "we need to use the Cascade weapons now. The Coalition can't hold them much longer." Amy looked at her weapons display. The Cascade weapon was charged and ready, but using it would mean destroying everything in a vast area around the target. "All Coalition ships, this is Foster. Clear the target zone immediately. We're going to fire." "Negative," Veltar's voice came back immediately. "Many of our ships are too damaged to retreat. Fire anyway." We knew this might happen. Amy felt sick. The aliens were asking her to kill them along with their enemies. But she could see the tactical situation was hopeless without the Cascade weapon. The Devourers were already beginning to break through the Coalition lines. "Cascade weapon ready," reported her weapons officer. "Target locked on the main swarm concentration." Amy closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of all the Coalition crews who were about to die. Then she opened them and gave the order that would change everything. "Fire." The weapon released its invisible energy into space, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Amy watched in horror as the effect began. The Devourers in the target zone didn't explode or burn. They simply stopped existing, their molecular structure unraveling at the quantum level. But the effect didn't stop there. Dr. Moore's instruments showed the cascade field spreading outward, following the quantum connections between the Devourer ships. The energy moved faster than light, jumping from ship to ship through their shared consciousness. "It's working," Amy said, barely believing what she was seeing. "The entire local swarm is being destroyed." But then Dr. Moore's voice filled the bridge with alarm. "Captain, the cascade field isn't stopping. It's following the quantum network beyond the target area. It's spreading to other star systems." Amy looked at her display in growing horror. The cascade effect was moving along the Devourer's communication network, reaching out across space to find more connections to break. What had been designed as a localized weapon was becoming something far more dangerous. "Can we shut it off?" she asked desperately. No, Dr. Moore replied, her voice shaking. The reaction is self-sustaining now. It's feeding on the quantum connections themselves. Captain Steve Walsh, commanding the UCS Obliterator, reported from across the battle zone. I'm seeing the same effect here. The cascade field is spreading through subspace, following bioquantum signatures. It's not just destroying devourers anymore. Amy felt her blood run cold. What do you mean? Coalition ships are starting to disappear too. Anything with organic components is being affected. A weapon can't tell the difference between friend and enemy. Commander Phillips tried to coordinate the retreat, but it was too late. The cascade field had grown beyond anyone's ability to control it. Ships that had been fighting alongside each other moments before were now being consumed by the same force. Veltar's final transmission came through clearly, despite the chaos around them. We understand now. Your weapon follows life itself. It destroys the quantum connections that bind all organic matter together. The alien's voice was calm, almost peaceful. We asked for your help, and you gave it. The devourers will be stopped, but we will not survive to see the peace that follows. Amy watched helplessly as the last coalition ships disappeared into the expanding field of quantum destruction. The devourer swarm was gone, but so were the aliens who had asked for humanity's help. Captain, Dr. Moore said quietly, I'm detecting cascade effects in 17 different star systems now. The quantum field is spreading along all the bioconnections. In this region of space, it won't stop until it runs out of organic matter to consume. Amy looked around her bridge at the shocked faces of her crew. They had won the battle, but at a cost no one had imagined. The weapon designed to save the galaxy was now consuming it, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Send a message. To Earth, she said finally. Tell them what we've done. Tell them the devourers are dead, but so is everything else in this region of space. The cascade field continued to spread, silent and invisible, carrying humanity's solution to its terrible conclusion. 6 months after the cascade weapon was fired, Director Helen Carter stood in the Emergency Command Center on Earth, staring at a map of the galaxy that showed too much empty space. Red zones marked where star systems had once been, now containing nothing but dead rock and cosmic dust. Latest report from the survey teams, said Dr. Alex Turner, handing her a datapad. His face looked older than his 40 years, aged by months of studying humanity's greatest mistake. 47 star systems completely sterilized. No organic life detected anywhere in the affected region. Helen nodded silently. She had read similar reports every day for weeks. The numbers never got easier to hear. Billions of lives gone, not because of the devourers, but because of humanity's solution to the devourers. Any sign the effect is slowing down? She asked, though she already knew the answer. The quantum cascade finally burned itself out last week, Dr. Turner replied. But the damage is permanent. The affected areas have become what we're calling dead zones. Space where quantum fields are so disrupted that nothing can grow, nothing can live. Even faster-than-light travel doesn't work there anymore. Ambassador. Maria Santos entered the room, her diplomatic uniform wrinkled from another sleepless night. We've got more problems. The Alterian Empire just issued another ultimatum. They want all human colonies evacuated from their border systems within 30 days. Helen rubbed her tired eyes. The political situation was getting worse every day. When news of the cascade weapon spread through the galaxy, other alien civilizations had reacted with fear and anger. Humanity went from being an unknown newcomer to being seen as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. What about the coalition survivors? Helen asked. Maria's expression grew sad. 300 individuals scattered across different refugee camps. Veltar died in the cascade, along with most of their leadership. The survivors blame us for destroying their entire civilization. The few coalition members who had been outside the Cascade Zone when it activated were the only witnesses to what had really happened. Their testimony had spread through galactic communication networks, telling the story of how humanity's help had been worse than the original threat. Dr. Turner pulled up another display showing quantum field readings from across the galaxy. We're detecting instabilities in other regions too. The cascade effect seems to have weakened quantum bonds throughout this galactic arm. We might see more dead zones appearing spontaneously. Captain Jake Morrison entered the command center, looking exhausted from his latest mission. He had been leading evacuation efforts for human colonies near the expanding dead zones, relocating millions of people to safer systems. The evacuation of New Boston is complete, he reported, but the colonists are angry. They want to know why. They have to abandon homes they spent decades building. Helen knew the answer, but it never got easier to explain. The dead zones were growing slowly but steadily, consuming space itself as quantum instabilities spread. Any planet too close to the affected areas would eventually become uninhabitable. We've had to classify the Cascade technology as forbidden, Dr. Turner said. All research has been shut down, all existing weapons dismantled. But the damage to our reputation is already done. Captain Amy Foster's voice came through the communication system from her position patrolling the outer colonies. I'm detecting 3 alien fleets on approach vectors to the Centauri system. They're not responding to communication attempts. Helen felt her stomach drop. This was what they had been fearing. Other species were no longer content to simply avoid humanity. Some were actively planning to do something about the threat humans represented. Are they hostile? She asked. Unknown. But they're moving in attack formations, Amy replied. Orders? Helen looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They all knew what this meant. The galaxy had decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to expand freely. Do not engage unless fired upon, Helen ordered. We can't afford to give them more reasons to fear us. Ambassador Santos was already working on diplomatic solutions. I'm sending messages to every known alien government, trying to explain that the weapon was an accident, that we never intended for the cascade effect to spread. It doesn't matter what we intended, Captain Morrison said quietly. What matters is what we did. We destroyed an entire region of space trying to help. Dr. Turner brought up historical records from the Coalition archives, data they had recovered before the cascade spread. The irony is that the Devourers might have been contained eventually. The Coalition had several experimental weapons in development that might have worked. Helen stared at the records of alien civilizations that no longer existed. 17 species, each with their own cultures, art, and history. All gone because humanity had acted too quickly with technology they didn't fully understand. The survivors are calling it the Great Silence, Maria reported. That's what they're naming the dead zones. Regions of space where nothing will ever live again. A new message arrived from the frontier colonies. Admiral Peter Hayes appeared on the main screen, his face grim. We're seeing more alien fleets gathering at the galactic borders. It looks like they're forming some kind of alliance. Purpose unknown, but we have to assume it's directed at us. Helen made the decision that she knew was coming for months. Begin. Operation Withdrawal. All human colonies beyond the inner systems are to be evacuated. We're pulling back to Earth and the core worlds. The room went silent. Operation Withdrawal meant abandoning humanity's expansion into space, giving up colonies. That represented decades of work and dreams. Are we giving up? Captain Morrison asked. We're accepting responsibility, Helen replied. We asked to help, and we brought annihilation instead. The galaxy has made it clear that they don't want our kind of help anymore. Dr. Turner was already calculating the logistics. It will take 2 years to evacuate all the outer colonies. Where do we put 30 million colonists? We'll find a way, Helen said. We built the colonies once. We can build them again closer to home. But everyone in the room knew the truth. Humanity's expansion into the galaxy was over. They would be confined to their own small corner of space, feared and avoided by every other intelligent species. The final report came from the deep space monitoring stations. Long-range sensors confirm it. The dead zones are stable now, but permanent. 47 star systems that will never support life again. Helen looked at the galactic map one more time, at all the red zones marking humanity's mistake. Veltar's final words echoed in her memory. The aliens had begged for help against annihilation, and humanity had brought them a more complete annihilation than they could have imagined. Send a message to all human forces, she ordered. We're going home, and we're staying there. The age of human expansion was over before it had really begun, ended by the same ingenuity that had made it possible. In the first place,